China remembers everything the West wants to forget. And that memory is now a superpower. You've probably heard the saying, trust takes years to build, but only seconds to destroy. Now imagine that on a national scale. Imagine your country being humiliated, carved up, drugged, invaded, and controlled for over a century, all by foreign powers who claimed they were civilizing you. Now imagine surviving that, and then becoming powerful enough to make sure it never happens again. That is modern China, and that's why, when Western leaders talk about a rules-based international order, China hears something very different. To understand China today, its anger, its suspicion, its ambition, we have to go back. Not decades, not even a century. We're going back to the early 1800s. In the early 19th century, China wasn't a poor or backward country. It was the richest, most advanced civilization on Earth. While Europe was still industrializing, China had already mastered large-scale manufacturing, global trade, advanced agriculture, and complex bureaucracy. China produced what the world wanted: porcelain, silk, tea. Europe was obsessed. But here was the problem for Britain. China didn't want anything Britain had. Trade was one-sided, and China demanded payment in silver. And Britain's silver reserves were running dangerously low. So Britain faced a choice: accept the trade imbalance, or force China to buy something. They chose force. Britain's solution was opium, grown in British-controlled India, smuggled illegally into China. Not small shipments. This was industrial-scale drug trafficking, backed by the British Empire. Millions of Chinese became addicted. Families were destroyed. The economy was destabilized. So the Chinese government did what any government would do. They tried to stop it. In 1839, Emperor Daoguang appointed an official named Lin Zexu. Lin confiscated and destroyed over 1,000 tons of opium. In Britain's response, they declared war. Yes, Britain went to war because China wouldn't let them sell drugs. This became the First Opium War. China lost badly, and that defeat changed everything. After China was defeated, Britain forced it to sign the first of many unequal treaties. These were not negotiations. They were documents signed at gunpoint. China was forced to give up territory, including Hong Kong, open ports to foreign control, grant legal immunity to foreigners, accept massive economic disadvantages. Once Britain proved China could be bullied, the rest of the world lined up. France, Russia, Germany, Japan, the United States. Between 1842 and 1933, China was forced into dozens of unequal treaties. Each one stripped away more sovereignty, more dignity, more control over its own future. Then came the Second Opium War. British and French troops marched into Beijing, and what they did next still burns in Chinese memory. They looted and burned the old Summer Palace, a cultural treasure built over 150 years, filled with priceless art and history. There was no military reason. They destroyed it simply because they could. It was a message. Oh, Act 4. A country carved up 6:30 to 8 o'clock. By the late 1800s, China had been carved into spheres of influence. Foreign powers controlled Chinese ports, railways, industries, and laws. Chinese people were treated as second-class citizens in their own land. Imagine this. For centuries, you believe your civilization is the center of the world. Then, in just a few decades, your country becomes a playground for foreign empires. Your government can't protect you. Your resources are extracted. Your future is dictated by outsiders. This wasn't just political defeat. It was psychological destruction. By 1900, Chinese anger exploded. The Boxer Rebellion was a desperate uprising against foreign control. The response: 8 foreign nations formed an alliance to crush it. Britain, France, Germany, Russia, Japan, the US, Italy, and Austria-Hungary. They invaded China together. After crushing the rebellion, they forced China to pay 450 million taels of silver in reparations, billions in today's money. China was forced to pay compensation for trying to resist exploitation. From 1839 to 1949, this entire period became known as the Century of Humiliation. Act 6. This is not ancient history 9:30 to 11 o'clock. Here's what the West often misses. This isn't distant history for China. It's taught in schools. It's in movies and TV shows. It's in museums. There's a permanent exhibition in the National Museum of China dedicated entirely to this era. So when Chinese leaders talk about national rejuvenation or the Chinese dream, they are not speaking in slogans. They mean, never be weak again, never be humiliated again, never let foreigners dictate terms on Chinese soil again. The Communist Party's legitimacy is built on ending this humiliation. In 1949, when Mao Zedong declared, "The Chinese people have stood up," that wasn't rhetoric. It was a response to a century of being forced to kneel. After 1949, China was finally free from foreign control. But did the West welcome them? Not at all. During the Cold War, China was isolated. Trade was embargoed. It was blocked from the United Nations for over 20 years. Taiwan held China's seat instead. American military alliances surrounded China's borders. Then came the Korean War. Chinese and American soldiers fought directly. Over 180,000 Chinese soldiers died. From China's perspective, American forces were right on their border, threatening their survival. The message was clear: you are not accepted as an equal. In the late 20th century, China tried a different approach. They opened up. They joined the global economy. In 2001, China joined the World Trade Organization. From China's perspective, they were finally playing by the rules. But then the goalposts moved. Western companies were happy to outsource manufacturing to China. But when China began building its own tech giants, Huawei, ZTE, TikTok, suddenly there were bans, sanctions, and security concerns. China's takeaway: when we make cheap goods, it's fine. When we compete at the top, it's a threat. In 1999, during NATO's bombing of Yugoslavia, U.S. bombs hit the Chinese embassy in Belgrade. 3 Chinese journalists were killed. The U.S. said it was an accident. Outdated maps. But from China's perspective, the message was chilling. International law applies when convenient. Sovereignty matters until it doesn't. Chinese lives are expendable. That moment is seared into China's national memory. Act 10. Why China thinks the way it does. 15 to 1630. Today, China is strong. Second largest economy. Advanced technology. Powerful military. Global influence. And they remember everything. So when the West says, rules-based order, China hears rules written when we were weak. Free trade. China hears free when it helps you. Human rights. China hears a political weapon. Is China always right? No. But this is the lens they see the world through. A lens shaped by 180 years of trauma. China isn't going to collapse. It isn't going to forget. And it isn't going to become the West. The competition we're seeing today, trade wars, tech bans, military buildups, all trace back to this history. Trust requires vulnerability, and China learned that vulnerability leads to exploitation. The century of humiliation may have ended in 1949, but its shadow still shapes the world today. China remembers, and that memory is now policy. Thanks for watching. If you want to understand how all this began with the opium trade, click the next video on your screen.